I want to apply the same care and attention to our passage. So verse 13, all the way up to verse 18, talks about Abraham and God. So we're reading about them in the third person. This is what he did. This is what he said. God did this. Abraham did this. It's about them, and we get to watch and we get to hear and see this conversation. But then there's a shift in the language, and we start to read these pronouns like we and us. So he goes from talking about what Abraham and God did to say all of that happened so that we could have hope, so that we could have strong consolation. Those of us who have put our hope in what Jesus Christ did. That means those who believe God's word receive the benefits and blessings of the promise made to Abraham. This is a remarkable reality, that what God said that day is a blessing that you partake of as you trust Jesus. And the appeal here is for the believing reader to understand and to have this full assurance of faith, the same assurance of faith that defined Abraham's life, the same hope that drove Abraham on. Abraham believed God, and it was credited to him for righteousness. Your faith in God is credited to you for righteousness. Think about that. God sees that you believe. God sees your trust and your faith in his Son. You are as much the friend of God and the recipient of his blessings as Abraham himself was. I mean, Paul says this in the book of Galatians. It's not just for believing Abraham, but those who walk in the faith and follow in the steps of Abraham. Now, I do believe when you read the Bible, you have to make a few distinctions here. And I see in this conversation between God and Abraham that there's a geographical land that was promised to Abraham, right? This land that your foot is treading on, I'll give it to you and your descendants. Sorry to tell you guys, as Gentile Christians, you don't have a claim in that promise. So I can't say, hey, Genesis 22 says this land belongs to me because I'm a descendant of Abraham, so I'm going to go take the land of Palestine. But I'm not jealous. I'm not jealous. I'm actually glad that God gave him that land and multiplied his descendants. You know why? Because when God's son came, you know what he was? A Jewish man. You know where he was born? In the land of promise. And you know what he did? Fulfilled this word that was spoken to Abraham generations ago. And as long as I get in on the part of the promise that has to do with Jesus loving me and forgiving me for my sins and giving me a place in paradise with him, you can have all the cattle you want in Palestine. Give me Jesus, right? So we have this part of the blessing that's available to us in the church. You, believers, are blessed in this seed. And you are the recipients of this promise that God made to Abraham, because it was never intended for one person and one people. This is the work that God has done in opening the doors wide open, opening the doors of the church to more than just Hebrews. Just give me Jesus, and I'm good forever. Just give me that seed that was promised.